This moment is an explosion of a multitude of factors. And I believe that in this moment we have a choice. And this is really what we teach at the Whole Heart Center. We look for the result that we want. And we always say, what's the result that you can control? So what do I want in this moment? If you ask me personally what I want, I would tell you that I want a world for my grandchildren that I don't have to sit up at night worrying, are they going to be okay? And could they be pulled over for going through a stop sign and yet be yanked out of the car, thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and with a knee on a neck, their life slips away? I don't want that for my grandchildren. So with the name Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center, what I find is that people often pigeonhole us. And the minute they hear the word grief, they only think about death. What I always tell people is that grief is everything. Any kind of change that happens in your life, whether good or bad, we have a tendency to grieve it. Yes, someone passes away, I feel pain and I feel grief. But also when my child gets married and leaves home, I feel pain and I feel grief, even though it's a good thing. So what does that matter and why am I bringing it up? I'm bringing it up because when I think about the civil unrest that is going on in the world today and how we are all reacting to it, the first word that comes to my mind and to my heart is grief. That we are watching grief play out in a multitude of ways. At the Whole Heart Center, what we always say is whenever you're faced with any conflict, it is shaped by what you've experienced in the past and who you've been in the past, as well as what's going on in the present. So let me give you a sense of that. Here it is, a little over a month ago. Many of us either saw it directly or we heard about it, that a man on camera was being detained by police and that for almost 9 minutes, a knee was in his neck. And this man cried out. He even cried out for his deceased mother. And yet there was no grace nor mercy, and he died. And so what has happened as a result of that is the world has exploded and people are rioting and people are also peacefully protesting and people are angry and people are having conversations that they never had before. This is civil unrest. But what led us to this point is what happened in our past and what is also going on in the present. What's happened in our past is for years, racism, bigotry, prejudice. It has all impacted people in direct and indirect ways, in ways that were very public, and then also in microaggressions that people could easily say, oh, you're making it up. So here we are in this moment that we call civil unrest, that people are rioting, other people are peacefully protesting, people are having conversations that they never had before. There is a level of transparency as well as anger, frustration, and confusion that we have never experienced before, not with this much attention. But yet we look at this conflict that we're going through, and I can tell you for sure that it is shaped by both the past and the present. What's the past? The past is a history of slavery, racism, bigotry, stereotyping, hate, anger, covert aggressions, outward disdain, and even naivete. And so in that past, there is a group of people, oftentimes minorities, who have felt things and experienced things about which they have never spoken to those who are different from them. Why is that? Because in the past, speaking up could get you killed, or it could get you penalized. I grew up in a household where my mother said we don't speak about certain things. We never tell people who are different from us what we think or what we feel. She was teaching me that because her mother taught her that, and her mother taught her that. And the slave who came out of slavery and came into a world where just the wrong glance could get you killed, they taught their daughter that. And so in some way, shape, or form, this mentality has been handed down, as has certain mentalities about superiority, privilege, and other races being the lesser. And so here you have all of this stuff from our past that has been brewing right underneath the surface. What's going on in our present? In our present, people are stuck in the house. They're paying more attention to what's going on TV. And even in our present, they are grieving certain things. I'm grieving the change in the way that our world used to be and the uncertainty about what our world will be when it comes to this pandemic and the virus that is killing so many people and a greater number who look like me. I'm grieving already, worrying about, will it be my relative that will be next, having already known somebody in our family who has passed away, who will be the next one? And so I'm grieving that, yet I'm also grieving a past history with civil rights and a lack of civil rights, with prejudice and hatred and bigotry. I'm grieving that. Even today, when I watch something from the 60s, my heart aches. I couldn't even watch When They See Us, because that brings out a level of grief in me that sometimes I'm not prepared to deal with. So here we go with this civil unrest that is shaped by our past and also by our present. And what's happening is people are immediately reacting out of energy that comes from everything that was suppressed. The reactions on the other side are also coming out of their past and what they believed about differences, race, the way we treat each other. This moment is an explosion of a multitude of factors. And I believe that in this moment we have a choice. And this is really what we teach at the Whole Heart Center. We look for the result that we want. And we always say, what's the result that you can control? So what do I want in this moment? If you ask me personally what I want, I would tell you that I want a world for my grandchildren that I don't have to sit up at night worrying, are they going to be okay? And could they be pulled over for going through a stop sign and yet be yanked out of the car, thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and with a knee on a neck, their life slips away? I don't want that for my grandchildren. We always say at the center, though, but what do you have as your goal that you can control? Because the big picture like that I can't control. But what I can control is my contribution to the conversation right now. What I can do is to get people to talk across difference so that they understand each other's perspective. What I can do is work hard to get people elected who appoint judges and enact laws that are fair to all people. I don't want more than another race. I want the same consideration. And so what I can do is to get people who feel like they're disenfranchised and their vote doesn't matter. I can talk to them and try to convince them to be part of the process. I can be a positive force in a negative world. And so if that is my result that I believe I can control, then the next piece is choosing actions, which we call responses, that will get me there. I'm still formulating those, but I know that when I go to my choices, I take my power back. When you think about what happened to George Floyd, we all feel powerless, but we take our power back by understanding how we got here and then choosing where we go from here. That is what we do at Whole Heart. It's not just grief from death, although his death did grieve me, and it's important. but it's also grief from life. And if we address that grief, I believe we become leaders who then leave a legacy for our community that no one can take away. Thanks for listening.